All right, today we're going to take a look at compound probability. Here are the two types that we're going to take a look at: mutually exclusive events and combination of events. Mutually exclusive, that's where we're going to begin. Let's look at the first example. What is the probability of rolling a 1 or a 2 on a number cube? So these are mutually exclusive events because I cannot roll a 1 or a 2 at exactly the same time if I'm only rolling this number cube one time. So the probability of rolling a 1 or rolling a 2 would be shown as, well, rolling a 1 would be 1 out of 6 because the number cube has 6 sides, and rolling a 2 would also be 1 out of 6. And because we're talking about rolling this number cube one time, and there are one side that is a 1 and one side that is a 2, we would add these together. So 1/6 plus 1/6 would give us 2/6. And then we could reduce that fraction if we wanted to. So when we're reducing this fraction, we would divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. So 2 divided by 2 would give me 1, and 6 divided by 2 would give me 3. So the probability of rolling a 1 or a 2 on a number cube would be a 1/3 chance. All right, it's your turn to try. What is the probability of spinning red or yellow on this spinner? Please pause the video. Notice that I wrote it in another way. I wrote P, and then in parentheses I wrote red or yellow. You're going to see that notation a lot, and that just means the probability of spinning red or yellow. So hopefully you came up with the probability of getting red was 1/4, the probability of getting yellow was 1/4, and 1/4 plus 1/4 is 2/4, or you could say it's 1/2 of the spinner. All right, here's another example for you to try. What is the probability of spinning a 2, 4, or 6 on the spinner? Please pause the video and try on your own. Okay, you should have gotten 1/10 a probability for each of those numbers, 2, 4, and 6, and together that is 3/10 a chance of happening. All right, let's switch gears. Let's look at combinations of events happening. So now we're talking about two different things happening at the same time. Like if I had this penny and this dice or this number cube and I rolled them or threw them at the same time, what's the probability of possibly getting heads and a 2 at the same time? All right, so here are our cube and our penny. So let's talk about that situation. Let's talk about getting heads and getting a 2. So we're talking about the probability of heads and a 2. So sometimes when we have combinations, it is easy to make an organized list, or sometimes it's easy to make a probability tree. So what are the outcomes that we could possibly get on this number cube? Well, we could possibly get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So that's what I'm going to do here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a 6. And if I'm looking at the penny, what are the possible outcomes I could get from the penny? Well, I could get heads or I could get tails. So for each of these, I'm going to put a heads and a tails coming off of each of these numbers because those are the outcomes that could be possible. All right, so now I have how many branches coming off of each number. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 combinations that could happen for each, or for possibilities coming out of this event. So, but we're looking at one specific, the probability of heads and a 2. So we have to look where there's a 2, which is here, and here's where there's heads. So how many times does that happen? It only happens once. And out of how many total combinations? Out of 12. So the probability of getting heads and a 2 is 1/12. All right, so what is the probability this time of getting tails and blue? So if I were to toss this coin and spin the spinner, what is the probability of me getting tails and blue at the same time? So it's your turn, so I'd like you to pause the video and see if you can make your own probability tree to get the outcome of getting tails and blue. All right, not sure where to start? Well, list your colors. Red, blue, green, and yellow are the colors on the spinner, and then each of those colors should have branches coming off. And what should those branches be? See if you can figure it out. Pause the video. All right, those branches should have been heads or tails because those are the two outcomes that you could have gotten by flipping the coin. So your next thing that you should be doing is figuring out how many total outcomes could happen from this experiment. So I could get heads or tails twice and spinning red. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is my total number of combinations that I can get. And then I need to figure out tails and blue. So blue is here and tails is here. That happens 1 out of 8 times. So that is the probability of getting tails and blue. All right, so here's another example. Now you have a combination of 3 events. The probability of getting a 3 and spinning yellow and flipping heads. See if you can make a probability tree for these 3 events happening at the same time. Okay, not sure where to start. I started with the dice, or the number cube, and I wrote down the outcomes you could get. A 1, a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then I'm going to the spinner. How many outcomes are there? There's 4. So my 1 has 4 branches coming off. What's going to go with those 4 branches? See if you can figure it out. All right, so your final product should look like this. And you should start to see some patterns. So after maybe you got to doing the branches for maybe 2 or 3, you saw that there were some patterns here, and you could see that there were going to be 8 final branches at the end of each of these. So at the end of 1, there's 8 heads and tails. At the end of 2, there are 8 heads and tails. 3 has 8 heads and tails, 4, 8, 5, and 6, 8. So there are 48 total combinations. So we look at the probability of getting a 3, so that's here, of getting yellow, okay, so where's your yellow branch, and getting heads. That's only this little tiny one in here, so that's 1 out of 48 total combinations. Well, that's the end. If you need to go back and review any of the parts of this video, feel free to do so. You can pause any parts of the video and take notes. That's what you should be doing. But that's it for the probability video on compound probability.